Okay, so here we are on coming, the fourth point of the 7 points is to combine all the points, all the previous points into a lifetime's practice. Geshe Jumpa Tekchok, in the kindness of others, said that all the previous explanations in the previous points can be condensed into the practice of the 5 powers. So it says, point 4 says, train in the 5 powers. Sorry, it depends where I put it. Oh, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, put it in your throat, aren't you? Something. Train in the 5 powers. The 5 powers themselves are the great vehicle, as in Mahayana, great vehicles, precept on the transference of consciousness. Cultivate these paths of practice. So when it refers to transference of consciousness, so we're talking about practicing the 5 powers, training the 5 powers during one's life, but also at the time of death. And so when it talks about the transference of consciousness, it's saying, I was trying to look for the quote, I thought it was in Pabonka Rinpoche, it was me somewhere else, and it says, you know, this is better than the hik and pei, which refers to the powa, the transfer, those syllables are done in the practice of powa, which one has to have an empowerment for, or people rely on a lama that they have a karmic connection with. They say, oh, they'll just transform my consciousness for me. We always want someone else to do something for us. But saying actually training in the 5 powers is the practice, and to that it's like a summary of all of the Lam Rim by training in these 5. So cultivate these paths of practice. So in the Guru Puja, when the verse on that says, should I not have completed the points of the path at the time of death? So if I haven't done this during my life, excuse me, I seek your blessings that I may be led to a pure land, either through the instructions of applying the 5 forces, same thing, 5 powers, 5 forces, or by the forceful means to enlightenment, the Guru's transference of mind. So if I haven't done it, you know, may my Guru do that for me. Now, I have had 112. So it's practicing transference of consciousness at the time of death is the heading. Yeah. So, I mean, I have had a number of people, or you know, students who've gone to their lama and when they're near the when they've been given a prognosis, you know, you've only got a couple of months to live or whatever, and sure enough, they do only have that time, and the lama has says, don't worry, relax, your Guru will guide you through the bardo. So at a certain point, it might be relaxed, like the nun who most recently passed away at Chenrezig Institute, and up to about 2 days before her actual death, around about that time, you know, us other nuns were doing her practices with her and for her, and when she was able to join in, she'd be in and out of consciousness and so forth. And then Geshe Sultan said, your practice is done, to her, and it was a couple of days before. It's like, now you have to, well, you're moving out of this life. And so in some ways that can be really reassuring. Oh, practice is done. Well, for this life. Well, I don't know. Or maybe he meant your practice has been done. Anyway, she did have very many auspicious signs. And, you know, Geshe Sultan and Lama Zopa guiding all the way and checking up. So I guess she did have a lot of virtue. As she said, she'd only been ordained for 1 year. She didn't have time to break any vows. That's how she said it. I've no time to break any vows. Not that she was the sort of person who would, no. So training the 5 powers themselves are the great vehicles precept on the transference of consciousness. In other words, that's how to do it. Cultivate these paths of practice. So the 5, and it's on that sheet. So first of all, I'll go in summary and then we'll go through in more detail. So the first one is setting our motivation, or the power of intention or determination. These different words are used. Or resolve, His Holiness in the great way calls it resolve. Training the mind in the great way calls it resolve. So we know about setting our motivation, right? We know the importance of that. And so that's, as we've talked about previously, is the foundation for the practice of mind training and the 2 bodhicittas. So the conventional bodhicitta, which is the mind of compassion, of great altruism, and then bodhicitta, cultivating that. And that's a lot of what this Lojong training is about. And then, of course, the ultimate bodhicitta is conjoining that with a realization of emptiness. Okay, so that's number 1. The second one, the power of the white seed, strengthens those. And the power of countering negativity, or as Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls it, blaming the ego, putting the blame onto the ego, is also called the force of destruction, or eradication, or repudiation. So it's given those different titles. So overcomes all the obstacles to cultivating the power of the white seed, the seed of our merits. And then the power of prayer, which prayer is also called aspiration. So when we're saying our prayers, this is aspirational for ourselves. We make requesting prayers. We, say the refuge bodhicitta prayer. We're setting our mind in that direction. So this is aspirational. So that strengthens all those roots of virtue, and, keeps us focused on, or reminder, as often as we do, to strengthen, to continue to cultivate the 2 bodhicittas, which is the most important thing for us to do in our lives, whether we're in prayer, in meditation, or engaging in every moment of the day. And then the power of familiarity is also called the power of training, sometimes called the power of meditation, because the word gom in Tibetan for meditation is same as familiarizing our mind with the practices. So that enables us to cultivate love, compassion, bodhicitta, the 6 perfections, and especially that wisdom that will set us free, as we say, liberate us from samsara. Okay. And so His Holiness, in the Praise of Great Compassion, says practicing these 5 forces every day ensures we have covered the most important factors of mind training. So it's like a summary. It does say, indeed, a summary, a lifetime practice. So we can do it briefly, we can do it more extensively, we can emphasize one of the 5 powers more than another. Say we're working on our motivation and so forth, or we're working on familiarization, in our practice. So however we do it, His Holiness said the result will definitely be beneficial for yourself and others. Okay, so let's go to look at, so this sheet lays it out very nicely. How we practice as a daily practice and how we practice at the time of death. Of course, in some ways there's very little difference of how we practice as a daily practice, how we practice at the time of death, but usually they're presented separately, because at the time of death you're practicing to attain, the highest state that you can, but through your, at least minimum a perfect human rebirth. So I'll go through, first of all, the daily, doing as a daily practice. So here it says being fully determined in every moment to make your life meaningful. So that's already setting a high bar in every single moment of the day. This is what we're aiming towards. And really we can see the interplay between the 5 powers, because the only way that becomes more habituated is that continuously every morning at least setting our motivation, and then the practice of familiarity by bringing our mind back into that again and again. So we can maybe see that, okay, I'm not perfect at by any means of doing this in every moment, but the moments are more frequent. My mind turns to that more frequently, from never doing that to, at least more often, and we can reflect on that. Actualizing the mind of bodhicitta and overcoming the disturbing emotions, especially the self-cherishing and the self-grasping. So we look at, there's a small section in Liberation, the Palm of Your Hand. Actually, there's quite a few commentaries on the 5 powers. I was fortunate to have teachings directly with His Holiness, His Eminence Chodron Rinpoche on this when he came to Sydney. And I think that's the main. I guess she sat and taught it sometimes. So it's not actually, maybe it's just my karma. I was going to say it's not directly taught a lot as a sort of standalone teaching, but it is amazingly wonderful. So Paponka Rinpoche says this one, which he calls the power of determination, is the most important of these powers. And we know that setting our motivation. And we've gone through different ways of being able to do that. Paponka Rinpoche says, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you must make this resolution. I shall not let my life become meaningless in general, and I must especially not let this happen this year, and even more not today. It's quite nice to bring it down to something specific, rather than saying, may my life be meaningful. It was just like, if I bring it down to today, I can think, well, how am I going to do that today? How am I going to make my life meaningful? Well, I'm going to go along to the Dharma Center. I'm going to listen to the Dharma teachings. I'm going to whatever we're doing for the rest of the day. I shall do something meaningful. I shall subdue my self-cherishing, my true enemy. And in that way, your determination initiates all your actions, making them virtuous or non-virtuous in general, depending on what we do, Mahayana or Hinayana. So here we're making it a Mahayana practice. We're making it a Lojong practice. We're training our mind. It makes it very powerful. So just as an example Paponka Rinpoche gives, when you're determined to kill a louse, or many lice, or to prepare your lunch, then this is what in fact you will do. So we determine what we're going to do in the day. By the time we've got up in the morning and put on our belt, we have determined to make things of this life, food, fashion, fame, the means for our happiness. So here we take that instead, as you knot up your belt in the morning. I think he's talking to Sangha, because we do knot our belts, right? So whatever equivalent you like to, because I think Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, you're putting on the belt of self-discipline, of ethical conduct. So here Paponka Rinpoche says, remind yourself to make a resolution, like just now, from the depths of your heart. And so here then we could say, well, yes, I'm going to engage in food. We have all the food offering prayers. We can think that I'm sustaining my body so that I can be of benefit to others, so because I've got to stay healthy and so forth. And the self-cherishing mind says, oh, you need a little treat here and there. And in terms of fashion, it was interesting. I heard that, when Lama Yeshe was teaching, when the Westerners first encountered and got the teachings of Lama Yeshe, and the women stopped wearing makeup. I guess the guys weren't wearing makeup, but the women stopped wearing makeup, and he'd say, you should look nice because people have to look at you. Apparently that was a quote from Greta Garbo or something saying, I've got to make myself look nice because people have to look at me. So it's quite a different intention. It's not like I'm doing that to fit in with the crowd. I'm doing that to cover up what I perceive as faults. It's like, because people have to look at me. So let's make their minds happy. So, yeah, whatever you wear or so forth. And, I mean, Lama Zopa says, wear your problems like earrings. So, do you wear earrings? When you wear earrings, think, oh, I'm wearing my problems. How does that work for you? Yeah, all right. So that's that suggestion. And, yeah, the section on the 5 powers. So it's 612. So it goes on for a couple of pages there. So subsequently, a few more pages there. And then, say, Chilburu's training. He calls it the power of propelling intention. So all these additional words make it very nice that it's propelling my intention for the day. I quite like all the different translations. From now, so he suggests this motivation, from now until my full enlightenment, I shall never be divorced from the 2 awakening minds. It's just similar to what we just said. I shall not allow my mind training to lose its continuity. So this is quite pertinent. We hear a teaching, we get enthusiastic about something for a while, and then sort of drifts away. And we remember that thing that, from time to time, like, oh, I'll try that one again. That works. I shall make sure to never be divorced from the 2 awakening minds until my death. And of course, we'd say beyond death as well, but, this life. And it says, similar to the quote from His Holiness, bless yourself by resolving in terms of this year, Pabonka, this month. So it's interesting to see that as a blessing, like this hour, this minute. We can make it as short as we can, as we wish, to make it meaningful. And repeatedly propel your thoughts, in other words, make this motivation with great force. And we need that great force because our negative states of mind, self-grasping mind, self-cherishing mind pops up so frequently that we do need great force against that too, as a counter force, not to try and stop it popping up, but as a counter force. Okay. Right, so then the next one. Coming back to there. Okay, so that's the power of intention, the power of the white seed. So this refers to purification, purifying all your negative karma and obstructions, and accumulating merit and wisdom through positive actions. So I just want to talk a little bit about the purifying negative karma and obstructions, because sometimes when we experience obstructions in this life, I'm not talking about our negative states of mind, but obstructions that we perceive to come from outside, and don't we perceive them all to come from outside? And we see it because we've done something wrong. We've done something bad. It's not that at all. It's giving us opportunity for all this stuff from past lifetimes to take that as an opportunity to purify those obstructions, my obstructions to my meditation practice, my laziness about that, or not having the right conditions, or having a partner who doesn't let you meditate, or, various things, challenges arise, or not ever being able to go on that retreat because you've got so many other commitments to do, etc., etc. And they're all just obstacles. They're also, as Kadrala says, there's no There's no challenges, just opportunity. Just opportunity. So even thinking in our mind, oh, here's an opportunity to, practice more, to purify more, and to do whatever we can in accumulating merit. Sometimes, many of my friends have had obstacles to going on long retreat, and the teachings say you've got the merit to go on retreat, and then you have to have the merit to stay in the retreat. So we're always needing more merit along the way, and that's just thinking this lifetime, let alone further lifetimes. So accumulating merit and wisdom through positive actions, so that everything that we engage in that is virtuous, and we want everything that we engage in to be virtuous, even like taking a neutral state and making it virtuous. So like I'm going to sleep, and before I go to sleep, I visualize the Buddha and lying down in the lap of the Buddha, and visualizing the light coming, and then I'm sleeping for the benefit of all sentient beings. I'm setting a bodhicitta motivation. Or as Geshe Tsultrim said one time when somebody asked a question about the bodhisattva vows, and he said, you set your bodhicitta motivation, in the morning, and then even you sleep, you're sleeping with bodhicitta. It's like, great. Okay. Unless you get angry in the meantime. He didn't add that bit, but if you think, I never get how people can sleep with anger, because I just think it's counterproductive. But, when we have restless sleep because the mind's churned up about things. So using this as an opportunity of everything to be able to take that into the path of a positive action. So we have many, many opportunities, like everything we do throughout the day, making it a positive action. Like, with the purification, when you turn on the shower and having the internal shower at the same time as you're having the external shower, and using that for purification, for example. So many, many opportunities, which are the means for assuring good karma for future fortunate rebirth. So clearly, we've created these conditions for this life to have the good karma for this life, this precious human rebirth that is as good as it gets. It does not get better than this. We're living in a time at a place where everything's conducive to the practice of Dharma. It'd be different if we're in the middle of a war zone, or having to just fend for ourselves moment by moment, or, sickness itself can be a great motivation for practice. I've seen that with many people, but it also, as one of the directors at Vajrayana Institute, after she was director and she got ill and she's passed away, and she said it's so much harder to practice when you're unwell. Mind you, when she did pass away, Geshe Dawa said she was reborn in Vajragini's Pure Land. Wow, yeah. And if you're reborn in Vajragini's Pure Land, it's certain that you will become enlightened in that life. So, how amazing that, it's just like, I've met someone like that. and another thing, because people who'd come in, like I remember when I first started going to VI, and she'd go, when are you going on retreat? Like I was just like walking the door. She was like that with everyone, So when you're doing retreat, come on, get serious. But can I just walk in the door first? You have, right? Okay. Wasn't quite that quick, but it was pretty quick. Yeah. So assuring that we continue on to have the conditions. So the purification practices, of course, we're familiar with many of the purification practices, like doing the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, doing our Vajrasattva practice, making water bowl offerings, Dorje Kadro offerings, which gets at more subtle imprints. It said that the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, Vajrasattva and so forth, is working out the more manifest coarse levels of afflictions, and then more and more the practices get more subtle. So because you know, the practice of Dorje Kadra, you're actually visualizing within your body. So it's actually transformation happening. Well, you are with Vajrasattva as well, actually. All I can think is that when you've got so many sesame seeds and they stick to you, and I just think this is like the afflictions with the Dorje Kadra practice, and you're putting sesame seeds into the mouth of Dorje Kadra, and it's a sort of, and sesame seed, you just seem to be surrounded by sesame seeds, which is all your afflictions, and it's just like, yeah, they don't come off. They stick. And there's always more sneaky ones. I think they're quite profound. Okay, so just looking at Longa Rinpoche on this one. So you'll find them also presented in a different order, which it is here. Suppose you are most attached to your possessions. Destroy your attachment to them by giving them all away. So this is often said at the time of death in particular. A monk was attached to his begging bowl and it was reborn as a snake. The Buddha drove him into the forest. This angered the snake, and the fires of his anger destroyed both the forest and himself. He was then reborn in hell, and his 3 bodies, that is the corpse of the monk, the snake corpse, and the body of the hell being burned simultaneously. So the begging bowl, the alms bowl, because, you know, if you think a monk doesn't have too many possessions, and it's the source of food. Similarly, there was the monk who was teaching, and his student who was very devoted to him when he passed away, asked his teacher's teacher where he was reborn, and the Lama said, "Go home and check at the back of the house." And the monk reflected that every time people came for advice or for a teaching, after they left, he'd go to the back of the house. Anyway, he went to the back of the house and he was like, he's not there. He went back to the Lama, he's not there. And he said, go to the back of the house. That frog that's sitting on, you know, the mound, which is where he buried all the offerings that he got. So attachment to money, being reborn as a frog, protecting your stash. Pretty scary. Yeah. And another one was a woman who was so attached to her body that when she died, there was a snake that would just weave in and out of her body, which was representative of her attachment. That was just like reborn as a snake. So it's still attached to the corpse, which was her previous life. So, okay, I'm getting the message here. Don't be attached to the body.
Not be attached to your begging bowl. That's
yeah. 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 I mean, many things. You just think, what are the things that are challenging for me in terms of my attachments in this life, you know? So, well, I remember people going, well, I looked around my house, there's nothing I'm attached to. And it's like, what about your electronic devices? What about, you know, there'll be something. Car, whatever. But don't you think you can live without your car? No. In California, when I was in California, I think Land of Medicine would have the bumper sticker, my other car's Mahayana. My other vehicle is Mahayana. Very cute. Yeah. So Say Chulbu calls it the power of positive seed. means striving in all our striving in virtuous actions, engaging in the 10 spiritual practices, free of any damaging interferences from your body, wealth, and so on. In other words, not being caught up in worldly affairs, for the purpose of engendering those experiences of this teaching that have not yet arisen and enhancing those already arisen. So this is like when we say Jangchub Semcho Rinpoche, that may the Bodhi mind that has not yet arisen arise and grow, and may that which have arisen increase forevermore. So setting our mind in that direction, that this is what my purpose is in this life. Okay, so power of the white seed, the power of countering negativity, or as Lama Zopa says, the power of blaming the ego, which really brings it to the core, you know. We had that previous, like a slogan, put the blame onto the one, which is a self-cherishing mind. So repudiating in terms of, it's not just refraining from, it's like refusing to indulge in our toxic emotions, afflicted states of mind. And to do that, we have to first of all recognize them and go, I'm not going there. You are not going to hijack my mind. You know, you've taken a back seat, or I'm going to kick you out, etc. And also the meaning of repudiation also has a sense of denying the validity. So it's saying those afflicted states of mind and how they perceive reality, how that mind works, is not valid. It's not in sync with reality. So if I think about that in terms of anger, and then you say, you know, I see red, you think it's like that, isn't it? It's like this really hot mind that's just, yeah, totally agitated, totally toxic, disturbing. So first of all, we've got to recognize that and then say, okay, but I have to not just stop it taking hold. I have to get rid of it altogether. Eradicating disturbing emotions, and of course, especially the self-cherishing mind. So the self-cherishing mind is the mind that says, mine, it's mine, it's my family. I've got to protect my things, my possessions, my body, my family, my whatever my. And I really liked this. One of the parents who their child was saying, you know, they didn't want to share something because it's mine. And the mother said, because it's yours, you can share. So it's actually challenging that self-cherishing mind at a young age with a child in a way that they can understand. Because it's yours, you can share, you're free to share. And, you know, and yes, yeah, it's not saying you must share. You're saying, oh, it's yours to share, you can give to others. So, you know, we keep reinforcing that sort of mind. And also countering the self-grasping, which is the mind that we're born with innate self-grasping, thinking that I'm permanent, independent, and so forth. As my mother said, at 4 years old, I was, what did she say? Something independent. Anyway, I had a strong sense of independence. And of course, if I would analyze that, not as a 4-year-old, I didn't have the capacity, but of course, analyzing that at 4 years old, you are not independent at all. Just look at 4-year-olds, really. But trying to be. So the other word for that is stubborn. Strong-willed. Yeah. Is it? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a middle child syndrome, because, you know, you've got to fight for your rights, you know, your number 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So, you know, the more that we train our mind in wisdom, realizing that everything's interdependent, everything exists dependently. There's no inherent existence of anything. So when things change and I don't like it, this is just how things are. Like we, you know, have to come to some acceptance of that in our mind, that, yeah, things do change. To the power I can change things. You know, as Shanti Davis said in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, like if you can change things, why worry? If you can't, why worry? And just don't worry. Do what you can if it's something that needs changing. Otherwise, accept. You know, there's many things we have to accept, like the body aging. Although, you know, people try to do the Botox, stay youthful, you know, rigid face, you know, in a permanent state of amazement or something. It's very odd because it looks so plastic, doesn't it? So, yeah, looking at where we are grasping at things staying the same, the things that are most dear to us, which includes the impermanence of the body, the fact that we're going to die. And while I don't feel like I'm having my last breath right now, I feel fine about that concept, right? But when it is like this might be your last, when you really think this might be my last breath, totally different experience altogether. Okay, so just looking at, say, Chulbu on this. The power of eradication is the actual eradication of self-grasping. Our existence in, you know, lifetime after lifetime in samsara is brought about by cherishing yourself and desiring its happiness. Even within this life, all undesirable events, being incapable of maintaining a relationship with your partner, failing to have integrity with respect to your promises and vows, and having no interest in cultivating the realizations of spiritual attainments, and so forth, are all due to self-cherishing. So basically, Lama Zopa Rinpoche also says that everything disturbing to our mind, everything negative that happens is a result of self-cherishing. We don't want to hear that. No, it's true. All the problems we experience in this life, including sickness, relationship problems, all problems come from cherishing the self. Therefore, put the blame for these onto the self-cherishing thought. Even the Buddha was the same as us, having all the delusions and problems. But because the Buddha gave up self and cherished others, he was able to complete the path of method and wisdom. And not only achieve liberation from all the oceans of samsaric suffering, but also cease all the gross and subtle defilements and achieve the two kayas, Dharmakaya and Rupakaya. So wisdom body and or truth body and form body. In a similar way, the Buddha has also liberated numberless sentient beings in this and many other universes from the oceans of samsara and brought them to enlightenment. Think, because I have always been a child and never changed my attitude, but only cherished myself since beginningless rebirth, I have not achieved full enlightenment. Instead, I've experienced oceans of general samsaric sufferings in all the realms, of course. Rinpoche goes through all the realms. It is most terrifying to think that the self-cherishing thought has made me suffer from time without beginning. This self-cherishing thought is what has caused me the greatest harm. It is more harmful than anything else. There is no worse, more harmful, more frightening, or more dangerous thought than the self-cherishing thought. It is self-cherishing thought that brings every difficulty to all the people in the world, from the beggar to the king, prime minister, or billionaire. It brings a bad reputation, whether you're high or low. It is due to self-cherishing thought that anger, attachment, all kinds of ignorance and other delusions arise. And so Rinpoche, this here. Take the example of alcoholics. They waste their whole life. They are not able to practice meditation, to live righteously, or even lead a normal life. They can't do a job. They harm their body. They harm their family. When their minds get out of control, they start fighting and beat the family. They go crazy and even kill others and endanger their own life. Their life becomes like this, very sad, very hallucinated. So, this is the power of addiction, which is most extreme form of attachment, a sense of powerlessness over that. And that completely, I remember, before I stopped drinking alcohol, and I would have been classified as an alcoholic. But I remember one time when I was at a lunchtime meeting, we were planning a training program, and then I had a couple of hours, and at lunchtime, I had one glass of wine. And then I thought, I've got a bit of time. I've got a couple of hours. I'll go and meditate. And I sat down. I would have been, at that time, a cheap drunk, as they say. I sat down and my mind was all like, you can't meditate with that mind that's hijacked by alcohol. It's like, ooh. It's like, and that's the purpose that we say not to drink, is so that you've got a clear mind and you can meditate. It is similar with people who steal, doing it over and over again because of following the self-cherishing mind instead of practicing renunciation and contentment. So that thought of grasping at things, if we can counteract that with the thought of contentment with what we do have, and then a mind of renunciation, not wanting to give everything away, but thinking about this life's pleasures, renouncing that opportunity to do that. So they constantly make problems for themselves, get into trouble with the police, and earn a bad reputation. So even you have the eight-worldly concerns, you're concerned about your reputation, what happens? Even you don't want to suffer all the different kinds of punishment, you have to experience them again and again. All the problems we experience in relationships are due to self-cherishing thought. All the problems we experience in relationships. Boy, that's hard to hear, isn't it? No, it's not. I tell you, they will really be. Of course, we have, sensibly, we can't say in abusive relationships, we have to have self-preservation. It's not like you sit there and take it. It's not saying that at all. And then goes on to, it's also on a world level, the cause of wars. So we see this in the craziness of, here we have, both, Netanyahu and Putin, who are like, people want them out, gone, I'm not getting into the politics of this and that, but, that we have people in those roles who have no understanding of karma, it's just some sense of self-righteousness, shall we say. So that's played out on the world stage. That's how it can impact, a whole country's whole world system. And the dangers of our self-cherishing mind getting to that point. So Chilbu says, with the thought, from here on, I shall never seek the self's welfare for a single instant. For a single instant, again, it's very challenging. But we can have the motivation for that, and maybe it'll get easier and easier and easier. Already my mind saying, a single instant? That's way too high a bar. So you can see my poor mind is nowhere near this. but instead I must totally eliminate this. So the more that we are able to understand that it is the cause of all our suffering, to challenge that mind that doubts that or gives excuses or so forth, to challenge that, the more we're going to be able to regard the self-cherishing mind, the self-grasping, as the enemy. Okay, so the power of prayer. So as I said before, this is also like power of aspiration, that everything is aspiration. You know, when we take refuge and we're given a Tibetan name, a refuge name, or in highest yoga tantra, you're given tantric names. These are aspirational names, or like being ordained. You're given a name. These are aspirational names. There's something to, because it becomes a name that we feel then personal connection with that, then we work towards that because, oh, this is meaningful for me. And by the way, it's my name, not yours. It's mine. So we can use that in a positive way to generate the power of prayer, making this, so the power of prayer, making the strong wish to never be separated from bodhicitta and the practice of Dharma. So this is where, you know, we can think about this from lifetime to lifetime, to never be separated from the Dharma. You know, we often talk about, you know, in this, you know, in all future lifetimes, may I, aspirational prayer, may I always encounter precious Mahayana guru, you know, we could say, with the most refined view in accordance with Lama Tsongkhapa, you know, guru tradition and so forth, the most profound understanding of emptiness, you know, and so we make these aspirational prayers. We make aspirational prayers for our gurus to live long lives. And at the moment, for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to take swift reincarnation for the benefit of ourselves, of course, benefit of the world. And then not to be dominated by disturbing emotions or misconceptions of the self. So this one gives us a bit of leeway. It's not saying for even one instant, but not being dominated by those. So, you know, we can look in our Dharma practice how much, say, less anger or less pride or whatever our particular most toxic emotion is, or most toxic affliction, and see how that's over time become less. So am I still dominated by that or not? Or is my mind dominated more by the thought of cherishing others, the thought of being of benefit to others? So we check up with that and see how we're doing there. So then, say Chulbu says, so the power of aspirational prayer is this: at the conclusion of all virtuous activities, so anything that we're doing in the day, just helping someone across the road or smiling at someone and having a nice connection, having a connection, from this moment on until I've attained Buddhahood, throughout all my lives, may I never be separated. So from the two awakening minds, so you can see this is similar to the motivation. And may I instead train in them. May I know how to take all circumstances that arise, whether positive or adverse, into this training. Then make offerings to the gurus, Buddha Dharma Sangha, offer trauma to Dharma protectors and to the elemental spirits, supplicating them, help me so that I'm never divorced from the two awakening minds throughout all my lives. Help me to meet sublime teachings and teachers who reveal this teaching. This, the Master said, is a teaching that folds everything into a single utterance of Hum. So if we get that, then we can, you know, use Hum as our reminder to bring us back to that thought. So when I'm referring to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's practicing the 5 powers near the time of death, but it also relates to during the life as well, and is a wonderful compilation. Let's get to the power of prayer. So, as Lama Zopa says, the great enlightened being Pavanka Dechen Nyingpo, so in Liberation Palm of Your Hand, explained that the power of prayer doesn't mean praying to be born in a pure land of the Buddha. It means praying to take upon yourself all the sufferings, different defilements, and negative karmas of all sentient beings, and also praying to generate bodhicitta. So here we can see examples of the past, like, Jesus Christ being nailed on the cross to take on the suffering of the world. So having that aspiration to take on the suffering of the world, being prepared to die for that. And by the way, arising from the dead 3 days later, so we're being reincarnated. And so that's the action of a bodhisattva, of being able to do that. And then we hear stories of those who the Lama who prayed to be reborn in the hell realms for the benefit of hell beings, and then saw that they were going to be reborn in a pure land. So, I failed. I failed to achieve my aim, being reborn in a pure land. The rest of us would be like, great, pure land coming up. I'll go for that. Yeah. So Lama Zopa says, make strong prayers to never fall under the control of delusion, such as, I will never allow myself to fall under the control of delusion, self-grasping, and the self-cherishing thought. I will never allow myself to be under their control. I will never allow myself under their control. So we've got to think this is all aspirational. We're training our mind in this direction. So we do the best we can. And then the last one, the power of familiarity, strongly cultivating and becoming accustomed to positive thoughts, attitudes, and ways of behaving, especially developing compassion and the mind of bodhicitta. So you can see we've got a strong theme throughout this. So this is called the power of familiarity, the power of acquaintance, the power of training. So we're constantly training our mind. This is all the Lojong teachings about. Training our mind to accustom to positive thoughts. Whenever we see a negative thought coming, how can I apply an antidote? How can I transform that problem to an opportunity? How can I turn that situation around 180 degrees from self-cherishing to cherishing others? What are the ways in which I can achieve that for myself? So in mind training, like the rays of sun, adds in, we should familiarize ourselves at all times, in all circumstances, solely with the meditations as they've been explained. If we familiarize ourselves with this practice and maintain conditions for doing so, we'll regain perfection. As it says, there's nothing that doesn't become easier with acquaintance. So Chökyi has also said, this mind that is full of faults has one great quality, that it does whatever it's taught. So we can think the faults are because I've become very familiar with those, the afflicted states of mind, this lifetime, previous lifetimes, and I'm in a society that seems to take them as okay, if not, it's okay, it's normal. And so it gets harder and harder to keep our minds in that point when we're surrounded by. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Number one, because you deserve it.
Yeah, you deserve it.
You deserve it. You, only you, uniquely you deserve it. Well, they're wanting to sell things to you.
Yeah, it's really that simple.
And
You have to be nice.
we have to remind myself, I actually am not interested. I'm not really interested. I don't care how,
Because when I watched it, because there's a new one now, listeners, something about listeners, this Christmas only do what you want. There's this ad, and she doesn't want to send Christmas cards, so it's kind of it's a funny, it's meant to be humorous, so she burns the Christmas card. And there's people making Christmas cakes and then smashing them, sort of things like that. And so they, instead of calling it Christmas, they call it Thismas. So only
me.
Yeah, me. It's all about me, what I want to do. Whereas Christmas is meant to be about
others giving. Speaking of which, I was thinking recently about our Christmas tree and giving to the food bank.
Yeah. Set that up.
Maybe we set it up a bit earlier because I'm on a couple of days fairly close to that time. I'd just been on my mind, and I went to Bunnings. No, I didn't go to Bunnings. I just looked in their catalogue for Christmas trees.
Christmas tree do we put?
Well, what we have done in the past, we've had a Christmas tree that we put lovely messages and
that's what I was thinking.
And quotes and things like that. And then we've had the tub for putting the food offerings. Yeah. And that's it. There's, so many opportunities at this time for practicing generosity, because there are so many different collection points for giving to charities and passing it on to whether it's homeless people, so forth. It's a very good opportunity. Okay, so then let's look at how this might be slightly different at the time of death. So the power of intention, having the resolve to use the experience of death as a, hold on, before we get into that, just look at the fears. So this is from Liberation, Palm of Your Hand. There are also 5 powers at the time of death. They are mind training transference practice to direct your mind to its new rebirth. That's the idea of that transference. This is the mind training transference technique is more profound than any other transference practice. If you direct your rebirth through these 5 powers, you can be quite certain of not being reborn in any unfortunate state. And when it says in the verse, cultivate these parts of the practice, refers to the mind training practices, especially to be practiced or cherished at the time of death. At the time of death, this is Gomo Tuku, saying at the time of death, we discover how much skill in the mind of enlightenment we have gained through our lifetime practice of the 5 forces, the 5 powers. And we do, at the time of death, as I've seen with many people, it's sort of like, what is my ground state at that time? It's sort of like we go to our if we have very powerful practice, it can be something to motivate us to practice harder. But you've got to think the body's weak and probably the mind's weak. And so we have a default position, whatever that default position is. So I like to think, at least in this life, elevate my default position as much as I can, so that time, we talk about at the time of death of this is where it really is profound. And so continuing on with Gomo Tuku, if we have practiced mind training when we're about to die, we'll neither be worried nor make such prayers as, may I never be reborn in hell, or may I always experience happiness. And it's similar in Pabongka Rinpoche. Instead, we're able to say, may I be reborn in hell for the sake of all my mother sentient beings who are tormented there. So that itself would be a very profound bodhicitta motivation. Even we don't have confidence that we've got any power of the life and death process, but it turns it away from, oh, just let me not be in this pain. And we do see this amongst Dharma practitioners, because it's all very well to be theoretical about this when you're not facing that moment of death. But when you're either in pain or you have that sensation of going out of existence, quite scary, quite fearful. Lama Zopa Rinpoche wrote another book, Wholesome Fear, which was about that, about familiarization, as we do, like with the death, the 9 points, 3 points, the certainty of time of death, the certainty of death, uncertainty of time, and the only thing that's going to help us is the Dharma. So many different meditations in there, but also the dissolution, 8-point dissolution process. If we familiarize with that, when it's actually happening at the death time and we have any awareness whatsoever, we're going to be less fearful. So we can at least have awareness of the earth element dissolving. Already I've got an awareness of that because I'm on the aging side, other side of the mountain type of thing going down. And of course, more aches and pains, more difficulties having in body, which is the earth element degenerating, right? So very aware of that. So the more we can, of course, familiarize our mind. So then holding the resolve to use the experience of death as a means to help all beings. So I have seen this with prisoners, who, when unfortunately in the States, have been executed, but they've used that time to say, may my death be helpful to all sentient beings. They're not saying, may I be reborn here and there. It's like, one guy going out chanting Om Mani Padme Hum until he lost consciousness. And, when he was interviewed by the media beforehand, this is what he's saying, may my death help all sentient beings. And then they're like looking at him like, well, that's weird. Yeah. And to not become separated from bodhicitta while in the death state. So we really need that motivation now while our mind is strong. The death state, the intermediate state, and next life. So you can think about, the significance of that, how our mind is at the time of death, whatever state of mind that's going to propel our next rebirth. And we want that to be virtuous, minimum. We want it to be virtuous. If it could be a bodhicitta motivation like this, that would be incredibly powerful. If we're, you sometimes see when people die trying to save someone else, and you've got that minimum would be a sense of compassion, right? That's an act of selflessness. So their mind has been oriented to someone else. So you can assume that if at that time of death, that's where their mind is, that they're going to have. Buddhist or not, doesn't matter. It's the mind state. And so then when we're in the bardo, in that intermediate state, we take that subtle light form of our next rebirth. So whatever rebirth we're going to have. And that, because it's a subtle light form, there's nothing that obstructs it. This is why our prayers at that time are really profound. So that, if someone's a Dharma practitioner and we know their guru, who their guru is. And we're around them, we can say their guru's name. We can recite the guru's name mantra, or we could say the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, recite Shakyamuni name mantra. So helping them to bring their mind to the Dharma at the time when it's not. I mean, even my mother, who wasn't Buddhist, but she did have her medicine Buddha that she'd take from room to room, and she had a Shakyamuni Buddha, so it had nothing to do with, the medicine Buddha did, I got her that one. But Shakyamuni Buddha she got for herself many years before. I mean, we always had a Buddha statue in it all the time I was growing up, which was interesting. So, very Catholic mum. Anyway, so at the time of death, when she was in and out of consciousness, and I just had, when I'd be doing prayers and practice with her, and then I put the earpods into her ears when I'd go off to the loo or have a break, and have Lama Zopa chanting on Mani Padme Hum in her ears. So I'm really hoping that she wasn't adverse. Yeah, so I know that it wouldn't have been a deterrent for her. So we have to be very careful about that. But if someone's not Buddhist or doesn't have a religion, we just remind them of love, of compassion, of kindness, the positive qualities. Remind them of their states of mind and the things that they've done out of love and compassion. How wonderful that your love for blah, 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 your compassion for, your kindness to, etc. So we're bringing their mind to that state. Or even, minimum would be like something that, wouldn't be minimum, something joyful to their mind. So one woman that I was visiting often, I just take her through this visualization of floating down her favorite river on a raft, and the sun's shining and everything's beautiful, and she'd smile. So it was something that was meaningful for her, that sort of thing.
His Holiness said,
yes,
fails
to remember His Holiness space. Yeah, the face of His Holiness, or the face of, and this is what, and the nun who was talking about, who passed away, and would be reporting to Lama Zopa Rinpoche what was happening. Oh, well, His Holiness was at the foot of her bed. She's fine. She's fine. Yeah. There were many things like that were very positive. Of course, there were some crazy things as well. But, many, many positive things. Also, at the time of death, abandoning the power of the white seed, abandoning all your delusions at the time of death. Of course, if we haven't been practicing that now, it's not going to suddenly happen at the time of death. But realizing, for example, if we're familiarized with those dissolutions, that these are just hallucinations, these are just visions. And especially diminishing attachment by giving your wealth and possessions away. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche has quite an extensive commentary about that, and giving 1/3 to the Dharma Center or to Dharma projects, giving 1/3 for, maybe it's for family and things that have to be dealt with, and another 1/3 for a party that you're not going to be attending. Yeah, and then that sense of, like, again with this nun, she had everything labelled around her hut. She told us all, now that's for so and so, that's for so and so, and some of them she gave away before she died, but we knew the one she hadn't given an opportunity to give away, she'd already given away in her mind, so everything was given away. And of course, she had her will, and everything went to her daughter, so all that was given away, etc. So it's very freeing for the mind to think like that. As it says here, because if we don't do that, our attachment to it can cause interference of living this life peacefully and to die in a more constructive way. So like those previous examples of the alms bowl or the body or the money, it's an obstruction to our future rebirth. Again, my mother at the last years of her life, she also would invite us all to now put your name on whatever you want to take, and then you'd arrive there, and she'd always have these box of books for you to take away, which of course we didn't want, but we took them to the charity box, it's just like, here you go. I don't know if they wanted them even these days. People don't so much want books, but and even though you knew you're not going to be able to get, to do this with everything you have there, just that thought process, and you encourage that thought process for others as well. And the power of prayer at the time of death. So this is where I was saying, even if people can't do their prayers, if we know what their prayers and practices are, like our Dharma friends, and perhaps for us, we need to make sure that other people do know what our prayers and practices are, or, if you've got them all in a folder, just say, it's all in that folder, or whatever. But for ourselves, praying you may develop bodhicitta, take on the suffering and obscurations of others. So we could think about others that are dying, others who are suffering similar illnesses or so forth, and think, I'm taking on all their suffering. So this is helping our mind, turning our mind to, like when we look at Tonglen, and giving them all our virtues. Meet with qualified spiritual mentors. This is what we're aspiring for, to continue on the path in our next lives and so forth. And the power of familiarity at the time of death, using whatever suffering you experience into practicing positive states of mind, such as renunciation. Okay, I always think, death is like trading in one body for another. So this sense of that helps with that, generating a mind of renunciation of this body. And if particularly if we're suffering a lot physically, we can think of it like that, of really, it's not so much, oh, I'm going out of existence, it is true for this life, but also thinking, well, this body no longer serves me anyway. And practicing positive states of mind, renunciation, patience. So patience with ourselves, patience with, often the presentation on the perfection of patience has patience with illness, and particularly around pain, because this is where people, I can't bear the pain, I can't bear the pain. And having some level of tolerance, like I'm thinking of one student who, when the cancer had gone to her spine, and she had decided not to have the mind-altering drugs. She said, I'd rather live with the pain than have the hallucinations I'm having, which weren't happy hallucinations. So she made that choice. And so that's really having that level of patience, of enduring the suffering. Having compassion, bodhicitta. Dying while meditating on such positive thoughts. If we can, it's a tall order to think that our mind might be in that positive state, but the more that we make that our default position, the more it will be. And the more that we've got our Dharma friends around us reminding us of that, the more it's going to help as well. Having tankas, having images like Lamso Rinpoche says, make sure to show like a stupa or a Buddha image, or the image of the Lama, along with saying their name mantras and so forth. And then lying in the lion-like sleeping posture. So like Shakyamuni Buddha passing into parinirvana. So lying on the right side with the right nostril blocked by the right ring finger, lying down. And if we familiarize ourselves with that in this life, as we've got the opportunity every night we go to sleep, even when we don't stay in that position, but at least start in that position and think, I'm just like the Buddha passing into parinirvana with your legs stretched out and left arm long over with your legs stretched out. And the more you do it, I found the more, at first it felt a bit awkward, but now it feels really familiar. And so being able to at least start my night's sleep like that. And if I'm thinking about passing into parinirvana, many people die in their sleep. What better thought to have? Thinking that I'm in the lap of the Buddha or the Guru, so forth. And then I like to also think like the bed is like pushing, like the bodhicitta clouds of bodhicitta. Who needs to pay a lot of money? You can just visualize it, make it as comfortable as possible. Okay, so that's a very summary of the 5 powers. There's much more instruction in there, but at least bringing us to a point of saying, okay, well, I can think about integrating these into my daily practice, my daily life, actually, as it says, every moment of your life, familiarizing with what these are and thinking, okay, I'm going to practice them now. So they're so familiar at the time of death that it will naturally happen, even when my mind's weak, even I'm sick, even I'm maybe not conscious. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. To have spontaneous bodhicitta, even when in an unconscious state. Comments, question? Yeah.
When Len and Molly,
yes,
the life group did it, and we
yeah.
did a different chapter.
Yeah.
Each time we met.
Yeah.
So we did it like a bit like a book club. Well, it wasn't like anyway.
Your discussion group, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really good.
Really good, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we had with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, again, Vajrayana Institute. It's a teaching we requested from Rinpoche. I think it might have been when it came out. I can't remember, but anyway, yeah. It is really helpful because it's like the more you familiarise, that's where that group's great. Because the more you familiarise with all of that, the less fear.
That's right.
Isn't it?
And what's the whole idea of wholesome fear.
Yes, wholesome fear.
Yeah,
that it can be a good thing.
Fear is bad.
Yeah.
And it can be, and it can motivate you in very bad ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So wholesome fear.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? That whole concept that fear can be very helpful. Because if you think about fear itself, that we have, it's in a ways, in many aspects, a survival mechanism. Right? Yeah. We're going to get out of the way of danger. We're not just going to say, hey, look. But then if we, on the negative side, we can be so fearful about, like when I was doing the Cultivating Emotional Balance teacher training, that everyone except for me was fearful of using the microphone when we had to do a practice session. And I'm like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But I get it, that it's a fear.
Yeah.
Right. And that was simply due to familiarity from a very young age being put in the limelight. So I'm very grateful to my parents for having that background and giving it up to me. But we have these fears where it's just like, what do you think is going to happen to you? What is there really to be afraid of? Yeah. And it's all about me. My pride, how I perceive my status, all of that. Yeah. Attachment. Yeah.
Very good dissolution process with Venerable Thubten on YouTube. Have you seen that one?
No.
I wouldn't put me onto it because we had a query after something that happened here. The query to the website, how could somebody do the dissolution process?
Well, it does, it gets explained in the tantric practices, but yeah.
Yeah, but her version is.
Yes, anyone can do. Yeah.
But it's a very
Okay.
but
Venerable Yonton on YouTube.
she's a teacher at Buddhism.
Yeah, she's American. She used to be at Chen Rezig Institute and then, yeah, and then teaching at Kunsang Yeshe. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have that a recording so that you can use that and go through it yourself. Great. Good to share these resources. Okay. So we can dedicate. Don't lose any second of all this wonderful, virtuous energy we've generated here together. Page 17. Ewadi nyuduta lama sangye tribune drowa chika malupa te salagopa sho jantrip sencho rinpoche makye panamge kuchi ke panyampa me payam gongne gongdu pawa shu. Page 19. Prayer for long life, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Jite and Kamdi. Endai Maharupa Ame Rume Samperi Jino Kadri and Some Tenzin Gahat Sola Soa Desu Page 23, Long Life Prayer for Tenzin Oswald. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. And then the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa. So just a reminder that this Sunday morning we are having a session of chanting the names of, well, reciting the names of Manjushu, which is advised by Dalai Lama for this swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Pillars teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much.